Good morning, and welcome to week 3 of our Weekly Rhythm series. This is a time when we just want to get together with you regularly at a time when you're used to this chapel hour to spend some time thinking about the Word, spending time with God, and worshiping together. And now we want to bring a word of encouragement to you in this crazy mixed up season of a global pandemic that we're all dealing with. You know, everything is kind of up in the air and chaotic and different than what we're used to, but there is some constant in our life, and that's where I want to point us this morning, to a place that is constant, to the one who will never change, who's the same yesterday, today, and forever, to the one place you can always go to find hope and comfort and peace, and to the one who will listen to you and where you will always find compassion as a response, even if you're sharing things that are difficult. And of course, that's Jesus. I want to point us to Jesus and take some time to really help us figure out how we might be more deliberate in our connection with God. So I'll just admit right off the bat that one of the most difficult things for me in this whole global pandemic has been the social distancing, and I'm an introvert. So I found that really surprising that after week 1 of working from home, I'm finding myself looking out my window more often and hoping a neighbor will walk by, or taking a walk around my neighborhood just so that I can wave to somebody. And as an introvert, that's how I'm experiencing it. I'm thinking about some of you, my extroverted friends, who may really be struggling right now. Connection is important, and right now we can't connect physically, but we can always connect with God. And even in this season of social distancing, there's no social distancing from God. Now, I know that might sound a little bit cheesy, but it's a really important thing for us to remember. And there are ways that we can connect more deliberately with God that can help fill that need for relationship that we all have. So today I want to talk about 2 different practices, spiritual practices: silence and solitude, and also prayers of lament. You know, we had people in church history who deliberately made choices to distance themselves from people. They were called our desert fathers and mothers, and I think there might be some things that we could learn from them that we could use to help us get through this difficult time. Now, they chose it and we didn't, but I still think that there's some things that we can learn. And so we're going to look at some of those prayer practices, some of the things that came out of their time in the desert when they were away from people that we might be able to use to help us. The Bible talks an awful lot about silence and solitude, which is the first practice I want to highlight. In Psalm 46, it says, "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in time of trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change." And then verse 10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." And in the book of Isaiah, when the people were living in a really chaotic time, God reminded them, Isaiah 30, verse 15, "In returning and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength." That's encouraging to me this morning. And then Luke 5 tells us that even Jesus spent time. It said that he often went to lonely and deserted places to pray and to be alone with God. And so setting some time to be alone with God is an important practice that we can cultivate even now. It's a time when we can get some perspective and where we can get strengthened in our relationship with God and also become more aware really of what's going on in our own lives. Because we're not alone in this. God is with us. So I want to give you a couple of really simple steps that you might use to enter into a time of silence and solitude and to practice this spiritual discipline. First, you need to find a quiet place. For a lot of you, that's going to be no big deal because there's a lot of that space. But for some of you, you might be living in a home with lots of people. You might be surrounded by roommates or family members, and so you may have to be a little more intentional. But find that spot where you can be away from distractions, where you can set your phone aside, turn the music off, and really just be in silence. And then tell God, "Hey God, I'm here not just to be quiet, but I'm here because I want to meet with you." And allow that space to kind of open up for you. And then try to quiet your mind, take some deep breaths, and just sit in the presence of God, quietly, just allowing your mind to settle. Now, if you're like me, the first several times I practiced this, about 1,000 distractions came up for me. And so you may find that to be your experience as well. You might need to take a piece of paper, keep it close by, and if a distracting thought keeps coming, maybe write down just one word that would help you remember it, and then give yourself grace to let it go and come back to silence. When your time that you've set is done, maybe you want to go back and look at that piece of paper and see if there's a theme in the distractions that you were carrying, and turn that over to God. Turn it then into prayer. It might feel awkward at first, and it might feel like nothing really is happening, but James 4:8 reminds us that if we draw near to God, God will draw near to us. God's with you in this. Another thing that may happen is as you allow yourself to really slow down and think about what's going on in your life, you might also experience some feelings of frustration or fear or anxiety, maybe even anger. And that's why I wanted to introduce to you the Prayer of Lament. That's a practice where we take those things that are distracting us, where we take those things that really confuse and bother us, and we lay them before God in trust and hope and faith that God will move. Now, there's a lot of examples of this as well in the Bible. In Psalms, actually about a third of the Psalms are Psalms of lament. Let me just give you a couple of examples. Psalm 130, verse 1 says, "Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord, hear my voice." In our language, in our modern day language, it might be something like, this is just another way of saying, God, are you listening? Do you see what's happening around us? Psalm 6, verse 3 says, "My whole body is terrified." That one I can relate to right now. Lord, how long is this going to last? Because this is scary. Psalm 13, verse 2 says, "How long, O God, will you utterly forget me?" Which is just another way of saying, God, I'm at the end of my rope and I don't know what to do. If you look closely at these Psalms of lament, they're not really requests for information, but cries of pain. God understands when we're in pain. God understands when we are confused and we need help. And putting our honest, vulnerable, and raw questions before God in faith can be an amazing way for God to enter in and show us that He's with us. A prayer of lament is simply being honest with God while also choosing to put your hope and your trust in God. I know that this time in the world is scary. It's something none of us have ever lived through before, and there's a lot of unknowns. But you're not alone. God is with you. And we in the campus ministry office actually are still meeting with students virtually. If you want to meet with a pastor, if you want to talk through some things, if you need somebody to pray with, please reach out to our office. We'd love to sit and talk with you and have some time to pray with you. You don't have to do this by yourself. And as I finish up, I want to invite you into one short practice. It's just going to take a couple minutes. But I invite you to join me. I'm going to ask you 4 simple questions. And what I'd like for you to do is just let the first thing that comes to mind, hang on to that. And we're going to turn that into a prayer when we're finished. So take a deep breath. Take a moment. And think about this. What is one thing that you could be grateful for today? My next question. What are you learning in all of this? Third, what do you need to let go of as we walk through this time? And finally, who are you reaching out to bring encouragement and hope? I encourage you to take a few minutes and take the answers to those questions that came to you, that first thing that came to mind, and turn that into a prayer. Tell God what you're grateful for. Thank God for the lessons that you're learning, even in the midst of all of this chaos. And pray for the courage to let go of the things that are out of your control. And then lastly, ask God to show you how you can reach out and be an encouragement. You're not alone. God is with you. Grace and peace to you, my friends.